The Cabins in the Elkmont Historic District in Great Smoky Mountain National Park is divided into 4 sections: Daisy Town, Millionaires Row, Society Hill, and the Wonderland Club. 56 of the old vacation homes are now slated for demolition, even though most have been added to the National Register of Historic Places. Daisy Town is the only section that will be preserved as a static display of 16 structures, to include the Appalachian Club that can now be rented for day use. One structure will be preserved on Millionaires Row and one on Society Hill. All buildings in the Wonderland Club section will be removed. Millionaires Row along Little River Trail. The story of these homes predate the park. It was during the logging years when Colonel Townsend, owner of the Little River Lumber Company and Railroad, sold land to Knoxville businessmen for a private outdoorsman club. Many of these men were members of the Knoxville Elk Club, giving it the name Elk Mountain, then shortened to Elkmont. The history of Great Smoky Mountain National Park traces back to those members of Elkmont that began advocating for the park. A delegation was even brought to Elkmont to sell the idea of a national park. But with the formation of the national park, members of Elkmont were able to obtain lifetime leases that were renewed over the years. The last lease was renewed in 1972 for 20 years. These lifetime leases seemed like a double standard, since thousands had to leave their homes, while a few were allowed to keep their vacation homes. The original plan, after the expiration of leases, called for the removal of all standing structures in the area allowed to return to a natural state. However, in 1994, due to the efforts of former cabin owners, Elkmont was placed on the National Register of Historic Places. This made it impossible for the Park Service to move forward with the original plan of removing these homes. Thus, 2 competing camps existed: those that believed the cabins should be preserved and maybe even rented out to tourists, and those that believed the cabins should be removed as per the original agreement. Elkmont was, after all, part of the incentive for creation of the park, therefore should remain as part of the park history, preserved for future generations. While the argument on the flip side is, these homes were no more valuable than the homes and farms that were removed by eminent domain. The one building along Millionaires Row to be preserved is the Spence Cabin, mainly due to its close proximity to the Little River Trailhead for use as a day rental facility. The Wonderland Club. All remaining structures in this section will be removed. In 2005, the Wonderland Hotel collapsed, so the historically significant items were removed and stored, and the rest of the hotel dismantled. It was in 1910 when Colonel Townsend started selling plots of land for the private Appalachian Club. He saw the potential for attracting more tourists to the area, so in 1912, the Wonderland Hotel was built, and Colonel Townsend offered passenger service on the logging railroad lines into Elkmont. Many of these tourists wanted to join the Appalachian Club, but it became very exclusive and difficult to join. So in 1919, some of those turned down for membership into the Appalachian Club bought the Wonderland Hotel and turned it into their own private social club, renaming it the Wonderland Club. Members of the club built an annex to the original hotel to provide more room, and some members built cabins nearby. The annex remained private along with some hotel rooms until leases expired in 1992, but could be rented out when the owners were not there. Under the terms of the lease, the members retained the right to operate the Wonderland Hotel until its last day of operation on November 15, 1992. Society Hill along Jakes Creek. Negotiations over the fate of these buildings ended with a memorandum of agreement signed in May 2009. The history of Elkmont will be represented by the early 20th century vacation homes called Daisy Town. These won't be rentals, but rather static displays to depict what would be the catalyst for the creation of Great Smoky Mountain National Park. Some of those first vacationers that had the wealth in those days to join a private social club still saw what could be by having a national park in East Tennessee. Colonel Chapman is one of those men credited for the creation of the park. This cabin on Society Hill will be preserved for that historic reason. An interpretive kiosk will be placed where the Wonderland Hotel stood, telling the history of this early 20th century vacation destination until its closing in 1992. No matter what your opinion may be on whether these structures should have all stayed or all torn down, that is now water under the bridge. On one side, the history of Elkmont will be preserved in its rightful place in telling a story in the creation of the national park. On the other side, those that want nature to take back where this abandoned community sits will prevail, with 56 structures being removed. All the buildings slated for removal will be shown to the end as a record of what will soon be what was.